guys, welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a gorgeous two-tier sunset cake. So this cake is going to a friend of mine who wants my sunset cake in orange and pink theme and also going over 2 tiers. I love blending colours over 2 tiers. It's not quite an ombre because I'm not only going from one colour from its darkest shade to white, I'm actually going to be blending 2 colours. So what I've got here are 2 shades of pink and 2 shades of orange. And I've got my 6-inch crumb-coated cake ready to be iced. Just before we get into it, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this video so you never miss a video that I upload. Let's get into the cake decorating. So I'm going to start with this darker shade of pink. And like I mentioned, I'm going on straight away with my palette knife to apply the buttercream rather than a piping bag. So I'm going to pick up some buttercream on the side of my palette knife and go straight onto the side of the cake like so. And the benefit of using a palette knife is that it doesn't go on in an even stripe around the cake, which will help blending the colors together when we get there. So I'm making sure that this darker color stays at the very bottom of the cake, only going up about 1/3 to 1/2 of the cake itself. Making sure that there's a nice even layer of this buttercream around the cake. And now I'm gonna go on with the lighter shade. So it's not necessarily 1/2 and 1/2, because in general, the darker shade overrides the lighter one. I wanna make sure there's more of the lighter one. So I've got the lighter shade of pink here, and I'm gonna go straight on top of that darker shade of pink. And it doesn't matter if they start merging together where they meet, because that's just going to add to the blended effect. So also notice how I haven't gone to the very top of the cake. Because it's 2 tiers, I don't want the bottom just to be the pink and the top to be the orange. I do want this blend happening amongst the 2 tiers. So I'm actually gonna already start introducing the orange on this tier, but I'm just going to finish off the pink before I do that, making sure there's a nice amount on the outside. And then before I start adding the orange, what I want to do is just go over where those 2 tones meet, as if they're the same color buttercream, really rubbing it together. And what's a nice thing to do as well is take both colors on your palette knife and apply them at the same time. And that really helps that flawless blend between the 2 colors. Because think of a sunset and think of how gradual it is. Lovely. Now I'm going to start introducing the orange. So this is the darker orange of the 2 shades. I'm not cleaning my palette knife either because I don't mind the pink going in there. It's all blended at the end. And I'm going to apply that to the very top of the cake. And of course we can't forget about the very top of the cake either. So I'm just going on with a little bit of buttercream and covering it. And I'm doing that same blending action on the side of the cake to merge the orange into the pink. So now I've got a good layer of buttercream on there, I can start finishing it off like I usually would, flattening out that top with the palette knife, making sure it's pretty flat for that next tier to sit on, and then going around with my side scraper. And hopefully that lovely flawless blend will appear. So the trickiest part with a blended cake or an ombre cake is filling in after you're scraping. So try and get the color matching as close as possible. But again, if a little pink goes into the orange, it doesn't matter too much. So I'm actually going to use some of the scraping to go onto the cake with. Wow, I'm really happy with the way the colors blended together, and I think tonally they work really well. So that's the 6-inch done. This is now going to go in the freezer to get nice and firm, and I'm going to continue the blended effect over on the 4-inch cake that I've also prepared. So like I said, I've had my 4-inch chilling and it's nice and firm, so it's ready for the second coating. So I'm going to start with the dark shade of orange, then introduce the lighter shade, and then ending on the white at the top. So same again, blending those colors together where they meet and continuously picking up both colors to really hide that seam where they join. And then finally white at the very top. and into the freezer for it to completely set before stacking the cake. So while the 4-inch is still chilling, let's prepare the 6-inch cake. So firstly, I'm going to chop off the corners. Because the buttercream is hard, I can get nice sharp corners with it. So I'm just going to take off the excess with a sharp knife, keeping it as flush as against the cake as possible. There, nice and sharp. Now obviously the 4-inch is going to be sitting on top, so I need to put in straws to support it. So I've got 3 straws that I'm just going to put around the center of the cake and cut them to height. So now it's ready to place the 4-inch on top, which I've got here. First, I'm just going to add a little bit of buttercream on the top to act as a glue. Then release the 4-inch from the board because it's got its own board underneath, which I stuck with tape. So I just need to make sure that's not on there. Take the tape off and carefully place it on top of the 6-inch. Making sure it's nice and center, which I think it is. So now I need to hide the seam of where the 2 tiers meet and chop off the corners on top. So I'll do the seam first by piping on some buttercream in between and filling up that gap. And then using a small side scraper just to remove that excess. I have exposed some buttercream around the top of the 6-inch, but I have other decorations, so I'm not quite worried about that. But I love the blend of colors. I think they worked really well with the orange slightly bleeding onto the tier above. I'm really happy with how the blend turned out. Nice. And I'm just going to remove the top corners. So now we've got to the best part, which is the decorating. I have meringue kisses, fresh flowers. I've got extra bits of buttercream to create more buttercream details, such as piping and clouds. But just before we start with that, I'm going to splatter on some gold because I kind of want this like starry, mystical effect. So I've got a paintbrush, I've got some luster dust that I thinned down with a little bit of alcohol, and I'm just going to place the brush inside, tap off excess, and it does get a bit messy, so I'm standing back. And I'm going to flick it towards the cake. And it's very subtle, but it just gives this beautiful speckled effect. And now I'm just going to draw on a few cloud details because after all this is a sunset. So I've got some white buttercream in my piping bag, and I've also got a pointed palette knife to spread them out. Drawing an outline of the cloud and filling it in. And then using the angled palette knife to spread it out. And the palette knife thins it out so it looks a little bit more watercolory. And I'll add another layer just for texture. Now I'm just going to finish with my usual pipes details. Wow, I love it. I love the color theme. I love the clouds. I think they really complement the fact that it's a sunset cake. And remember, this technique can be used not just for sunsets, for any colors blending into one another. Highly recommend trying it. It's really fun to create and I want to see what you create. So don't forget to tag me at Georgia's Cakes on Instagram. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, like this video and comment below with any tutorial that you want to see. I hope you enjoyed it and we'll see you very soon.